On Tech News Today, Jason Hiner is our guest co-anchor. Washington Post reporter Brian Fung joins us as well. And we've also got John Brodkin from Ars Technica. We're going to talk about Google shaming the internet into using encrypted email. Plus, AT&T promises fast fiber for millions, but only if they get their way on the DirecTV acquisition. And the Chinese government commemorates the Tiananmen Square uprising of 1989 by erasing all mention of it and lashing out at Silicon Valley. All that and more coming up right now.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, June 4th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT. And by RingCentral, the cloud-based phone system we use here at Twit. And it just got better with the launch of Meetings, the full-service video conference feature. Zero startup costs. RingCentral starts at under $25 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial and buy one desk phone and get a second phone free up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Mike Elgan.
I'm Jason Howell.
Tech News Today explores the big stories of the day with some of the world's best journalists. Our guest co-anchor today is Jason Hiner, Global Editor-in-Chief of Tech Republic and Global Long-Form Editor of ZDNet for CBS Interactive. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, always glad to be here. Thanks, Mike and Jason.
And I'm glad you're here as well. We have a big truckload of news today, so why don't we just jump right into it?
Yeah.
Google's Gmail supports encryption. You probably already knew that. But when a Gmail user emails somebody using an unencrypted service, the message isn't protected. In fact, up to half of all emails sent to and from Gmail is not encrypted for this reason. To fix the situation, Google intends to start naming and shaming unencrypted email services as part of its periodic transparency reports. The company also announced a Google Chrome extension that essentially forces email recipients to use encryption. Brian Fung is a reporter for The Washington Post and joins us now. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Brian, the shaming is already working, isn't it? Suddenly, Comcast is very interested in email encryption.
That's right. Comcast says it's actually already working on implementing what's called TLS support, and that stands for Transport Layer Security. That's basically the protocol by which a lot of these emails actually get protected by encryption. So what Comcast is saying is that in the coming weeks they're going to be unrolling this support for email encryption, so that emails traveling to and from Gmail from Comcast would be protected by encryption.
Now, who are these email laggards? It seems pretty egregious for an email provider in 2014, after all the Snowden revelations and so on, to not have encrypted email. I mean, who are these companies?
Well, Google actually has a database of about 6,000 sites that you can publicly download and search yourself that list all of the websites and their sort of level of adoption when it comes to encryption. Some of them, actually are pretty good at this. AOL.com has almost full support for encryption. Others, like Hotmail, will encrypt about half of their email. And the reason for that, that we think, is because a lot of servers must be configured to support encryption on a case-by-case basis. So it could be that some of these companies are, like Comcast, intend to roll out encryption eventually. They just haven't gotten around to it.
Now, Google is turning the screws on the email providers, but also on the users. They announced something called end-to-end. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. End-to-end is essentially a set of code. It's eventually going to be turned into a Chrome extension. It's not ready for public release yet. Google simply released the code so that people can actually read the code and make sure that it's structurally sound before any development actually happens. But what it would do is essentially create a little extension for your browser that would automatically encrypt your emails as they're traveling to the recipient. So if I'm using Gmail and I click the...
Having a little Skype
Chrome extension that would.
Yeah, we're having a few Skype problems. Brian Fung, we'll get back to you in just a sec with that question because Skype is not cooperating with us today. But Jason Hiner, I wanted to ask you if this is a good idea. I mean, you know, Google, it's great for a company to offer a service like encryption, but is it a good idea for a big, powerful giant like Google to go out there and squeeze everybody and force everybody to use essentially what is a service that people might be able to choose otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, Google certainly has an interest, you know, in this because people could blame them, right, for for email that is sort of insecure or that, you know, where there are problems, you know, with the email. So some of it is Google covering its own backside a little bit. But I think if we had somebody from Google on, you know, I think they would explain it as, you know, helping people be better internet citizens or create better internet citizenship, you know, by doing this. And so it is a little bit draconian. I mean, there is some overhead with encryption where it takes longer, and it can make, you know, the danger is it could make things that you don't want encrypted, right? And so, but I think Google is smart enough and to do this in a way that would be transparent as possible in terms of what they're doing, and transparent in terms of something that you're not going to see the you know, the hit from it from you know, a user and business standpoint. So I view it as generally, I think they're as generally benign, but certainly something that you know, Google is taking a much stronger position with this than they typically take on these types of things. Is that your take on it too, Mike?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I generally support it, and the simple reason is that for years and years, the use of any kind of encrypted service, any kind of privacy service that would block out, you name it, the NSA, the Chinese government, hackers, whoever,
yep,
has been the exclusive realm of technical users. And that's a bad idea nowadays, because the way that law enforcement and anti-terror organizations worldwide, and especially within the United States, operate, they've come to view the use of encrypted technology and the use of privacy services as a reason to suspect you of wrongdoing. And that is a lousy state of affairs, in my opinion.
Yeah,
the solution is for everybody to use it by default, and for it not to require technical acumen to be secure. Now, Brian Fung, I wanted to ask you one last question. I want to thank you for hanging in there through these Skype problems. But do we have an idea when this end-to-end extension will become available from Google?
Well, as I was mentioning before, I'm not sure if you caught this, but Google is currently putting out the code for people to see and to stress test before it actually develops it into a full-on Chrome extension. So there's no timeline yet as to when that might be, just sometime later this year possibly, but Google says it's really focused on making sure that the code that it's released is structurally sound and that there are no holes in it. So it's asking people like you and me or other technical experts to unpack the code and make sure that it's fit before they do anything with it.
All right, well, Brian Fung, I want to thank you for coming on Tech News Today again and explaining this issue. It looks like we're going to have some secure email at long last. All right.
Thanks for having me.
You can find Brian Fung at the Washington Post. That URL is washingtonpost.com. And he's on Twitter as well at @B_Fung. Well, in a sec, we're going to tell you about what AT&T is promising and what they're demanding in return. But first, I want to tell you about Squarespace. Squarespace is the best place to build a website. If you want to build a website, and why wouldn't you want to build a website? There are a million reasons why you'd want to build a website. Squarespace is the place to do it. It starts with 25 beautiful templates. You choose one, try it. If you like it, keep using it. If you don't like it, just simply flip over to another template, and all of your data and stuff will go right in there. It's super easy to do. Once you've used the template, though, you won't have a site that looks exactly like everyone else who's used that template, because you can go in there and customize and custom tailor your website to your exact specifications. And it's super easy to use. I've been using Squarespace for a couple of years now, and I'm always blown away by how easy it is. It's so easy to use that it's actually fun to use. It's actually a source of entertainment to go in and build websites just to see how they look. If you do need support, of course, they have 24/7 support via chat and email. And nowadays, they have e-commerce for all subscription plan levels. This is fantastic because if you want to sell something on the internet, they make it super easy. If you just want to raise money for your nonprofit, your school project, wedding registry, whatever, Squarespace makes it super easy. And it's inexpensive too. It just starts at $8 a month, and that includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. And of course, Squarespace is famously mobile ready. So start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website. When you decide to sign up with Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT, and that'll get you a discount of 10% off and also show your support for Tech News Today. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. And remember that a better web awaits, and it starts with your new Squarespace website. Well, AT&T is dangling the promise of wiring 100 municipalities in 21 metropolitan areas with fast fiber to homes, but only if regulators approve its proposed $48.5 billion acquisition of DirecTV. Confusingly, the company said that delivering its 1 gigabit per second service, which is branded as Gigapower, won't impact the company's capital investment plans for this year. John Brodkin is a senior IT reporter for Ars Technica, and it joins us to explain. Welcome, John.
Hey, how you doing?
So can you explain how the acquisition of a satellite company is necessary for laying fiber cables?
Best I can tell is that AT&T is saying that they're going to save about $1.6 billion a year with the transaction, and the biggest portion of that savings comes from reduced programming costs. As a bigger company, they'll have greater negotiating power to, get the cost of programming down. And they say they need that cost savings to build fiber to 2 million locations. But, they had already promised that they would consider building fiber in 100 municipalities and 21 or 22 metropolitan areas around the country. And that was before this acquisition. And at the same time, they never said how many homes they were going to build to. So when they say we're going to build to 2 million additional, we don't even know what is that in addition to, because AT&T has never said how many they would build if the acquisition doesn't get approved.
So just to rephrase this, they're actually saying that once they're a big, powerful company after the DirecTV merger, they'll be so big and so powerful that they'll be able to force content creators, Hollywood essentially, into such advantageous deals that the discounts that they'll get from those negotiations will fund fiber for all these people. Is that what they're saying?
They didn't put it that way, but if you add up the different things that were in their SEC filing, they mentioned $1.6 billion in savings. They said the biggest part of that is the programming costs, and then they said, they'll be able to build fiber because of these efficiencies. So when you add it all together, that's definitely what it seems like.
And what do you think personally? Is this just a ploy to get public support for the merger?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of doubt they're really going to change what they're doing in terms of their fiber build out, regardless of the DirecTV deal. Another thing is that, they're pitching this as something that will allow them to bring wireless broadband to a lot of homes, like 70 million, I think is the number they put out there. But that's another area where the merger has no real effect on it. They've already promised that they were going to bring what's known as fixed wireless service. It's like a home internet that runs on the same network as the cellular network. They've already promised to do that throughout their whole service area. And so they're basically promising again to do that if the merger gets approved, but they're just promising something they already planned on doing to make the merger seem more beneficial to customers.
Yeah, and Jason Hiner, this whole thing, of course, hinges on the acquisition of DirecTV. Do you have a sense of what the regulatory mood is right now with these kinds of mergers? I mean, this merger would make it the number 2 ISP, essentially. I mean, people talk about the television part of it. The internet part of it, I think, is far more interesting and far more important. Are they likely to get this thing approved, do you think?
You know, it's tough to see maybe how they wouldn't. I don't know. They're not. This is not like AT&T and T-Mobile where they're in the same market and it starts to look, you know, anti-competitive. So it's probably going to be a tougher deal to shoot this one down. I'm guessing that because of, you know, the especially T-Mo deal going south, that this is one of those things that they're being, you know, extra careful about, and that's why they're probably trying to play a card that they don't really have. I mean, let's face it, AT&T's got to build fiber. They're under massive pressure from Google Fiber and from Verizon. And, you know, fiber is something that they have to do. So dangling it out there is extremely disingenuous. You know, they've got to do it to be competitive, and they're going to do it, I think, no matter what. I think that but the regulatory situation is such that, you know, the U.S. government, who, you know, has to decide in this case, you know, they want there to be competition in fiber. And so they're appealing to that fact of like, hey, you know, if we do this, if we don't do, if you direct, you know, if we were able to save this money, then we can definitely do fiber. And, you know, we'll be even more capable of doing fiber and creating a more competitive internet situation. Those are things that regulators like to hear. And those are things where they can say, you know, this is going to this is not going to subtract from the competition. This is, in fact, going to increase competition for sort of the next generation of internet access. And so, you know, AT&T, it's a wise move for them to play that card. Like I said, I do think it's a little bit disingenuous because just from a competitive standpoint, they've got to do it. And I think that probably it's a wise card to play, and I think it's ultimately going to play well in Washington, and probably it will help get the DirecTV deal approved.
Yeah. John Brodkin, I personally am a little confused by the desire by AT&T to acquire DirecTV because, you know, it's a satellite business primarily. And, you know, what are they going to do with the satellite? You know, does satellite internet and satellite television really have a future?
Well, what they want to do is bundle it with their paid TV service. So it just, if you read the SEC filing, they mention bundles like, you know, 10 times. It's like a bundle of wireless internet plus satellite TV. It's you know, one more thing that they can use to get customers. So I think if they can offer good, cheaper bundles with satellite than they could previously, then that's just another way to increase customers. And also remember, the deal is semi-contingent on DirecTV continuing to have exclusive access to NFL Sunday Ticket. So they think that, you know, having the NFL, the exclusive out-of-market games on the NFL will help them.
Well, John Brodkin, thanks for coming on Tech News today. It's an interesting development and, as far as I can tell, a shameless manipulation of public opinion. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, John Brodkin is at arstechnica.com and also on Twitter at jbrodkin. Chinese state-owned media today lashed out at Apple, Google, Yahoo, Cisco, Microsoft, and Facebook, saying that the so-called pawns of the U.S. government should be severely punished for their participation in NSA spying on China, who they accuse of stealing trade secrets from Chinese companies. Wow. Jason Hiner, sounds to me like they don't want people talking about Tiananmen Square, which today is the 25th anniversary of that uprising. And
yes.
So why not attack Silicon Valley?
Yeah, right. This is just bizarre. And the thing is nobody has been more upset about NSA spying and being, you know, having to give over data and the ways that they've, you know, that they feel like they've been infringed upon in various ways by the NSA than Apple, Google, Yahoo, Cisco, Microsoft, and Facebook. Yep. And so, you know, it's just one of those really interesting things. Certainly, I think none of those companies want to be seen by the Chinese as, you know, corroborating with the NSA. And that's one of the reasons they're upset. They've been upset about certain, you know, the things that have happened and the revelations that have come, from Edward Snowden, because it's one of their biggest future markets for that simple reason. And they're in business to serve markets. So yeah, this is again another case of sort of spin and disingenuousness, kind of like our last story. And it is one of those things that is just bizarre, and I'm not sure what China's trying to accomplish by by doing it. I don't know. Do you have any ideas? What could be?
I have several theories. I mean, first of all, these accusations are coming from the People's Daily and China Daily, which are state-owned but not directly controlled by the government. They're not independent by any stretch of the imagination, and they do toe the government line. They try to read which way the wind is blowing within the government, and then go with that. But there are a number of theories. The first one is they want to divert attention from Tiananmen Square, which, as we've reported before, the Chinese government does not want anybody talking about that event, because essentially there was almost a revolution in China to a certain extent. They also want to divert attention from the fact that Apple and Google are in the news today, actually, this week, actively thwarting NSA spying. If you look at some of the things, the security-related news that came out of the WWDC conference by Apple, essentially makes NSA mass surveillance impossible using Apple products to a certain extent. And then today, of course, we're looking at Google's aggressive moves to make everything encrypted in terms of email. And then there's the most disturbing theory, though, is that the Chinese government is about to launch some sort of a series of programs that would prevent these companies from operating in China successfully. I mean, they've already kind of driven Google out. Google's moved its headquarters to Hong Kong some years ago, and for the benefit of Chinese companies. So that's probably the worst case scenario here. It's also worth pointing out that you had mentioned that these are the very companies that are resisting NSA mass surveillance, and in fact, Microsoft and Cisco actively collaborate with the Chinese Communist Party to censor the Chinese internet and to do that sort of thing. So it is a strange series of reports, but things get really weird on these anniversaries in China in the Chinese media, and so to a certain extent this is not super surprising. It is disconcerting, though, because they may be starting a new program to go after these companies, and they don't need it. I mean, they're already, Apple was already in hot water for a while over, there was some trumped up customer service complaints in the Chinese media that seriously hit Apple's reputation some months ago. And they fixed that by doing all the stuff they were supposed to do. Apologize, they would do anything you want, that kind of thing. And so Apple's kind of working their way back into their good graces with the Chinese government. Google just has no relationship there, and the rest of the companies have pretty good relationships there, other than Facebook. So we'll see what happens with this. Let's just cross our fingers and hope this is just about diverting public attention and not about favoring Chinese companies over international counterparts.
Yeah, I think there's got to be some commercial motivation. Like I said, because this stuff doesn't hold water for in most cases. Most of these companies are much more cozy with China than the U.S. government would prefer them to be, because it is such a huge market, and they have concerns going the other way. And I have to think the primary motivation, and we've seen this with Chinese companies, is they're trying to build their own thing, and they're trying to build competitors. They don't necessarily want to have all their money going to all these U.S. companies, as they ramp up and become a bigger part of the digital world. So, the commercial motivation rings the most true for me, as well as diverting attention from Tiananmen, which they certainly want to do and feel like they need to do. So, and obviously those are the two things that are the biggest concerns. So, as you said.
Exactly. And just one level beyond the commercial benefits to Chinese companies, they also don't like companies that enable people within China to communicate with each other securely and beyond the reach of the Chinese authorities. And that's something that, of course, Apple, Google, and all the rest are seriously working on. So we'll be following the story, and we'll see where it goes, and hopefully it doesn't go south too fast. Well, Google said yesterday that it plans to offer an overnight delivery service and also expand the areas covered by deliveries. The company's been making deliveries with its own fleet of blue and white Google Shopping Express vans in parts of San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles. But Google said yesterday they plan to expand to cover a huge chunk of Northern California, from the Oregon border to Fresno, California. This is huge because those are some very rural areas, not just, you know, limited neighborhoods within huge cities. And and they're going to do this by outsourcing some of the deliveries. So far, they've had their own vans. Now they're going to start contracting with other companies. Of course, for those of you unfamiliar with the Google Shopping Express service, they take products that you can order from Target, Toys R Us, Walgreens, Whole Foods, companies like that, retailers, and they will deliver them to you. And nowadays, they'll do it overnight. So they're trying to compete with Amazon here, clearly, Jason Hiner, but I think that they've got a long way to go before they can build up the reputation that Amazon has for reliable, fast delivery, and also the range of products that Amazon offers is vastly higher than what the Google Shopping Express vans can deliver.
Yeah. This is cool. Ultimately, if you're a consumer, you know, having more options for shipping and you know, fast shipping and great e-commerce where you can, you know, buy stuff is a very cool thing. So good for them. But from a company standpoint, I'm not sure what Google's doing here. The fun, sort of the ironic side of this is sort of coming in the wake of some of these Google the automated cars thing. That's sort of what my mind went to. Like, okay, could they somehow automate this eventually? You know, could sort of Google automated vehicles, you know, be involved in this, even if it was like there's somebody in the car who, you know, does the deliveries, but the car is sort of picks the route and whatever, so they don't have to spend as much time sort of driving. Just as soon as they get there, like they can hop out of the car and start delivering it. That's a little bit of a stretch, but I started thinking about this in terms of, well, Google's getting really interested in the sort of fleet of vehicles kind of thing. And is this an extension of maybe their efforts in that direction, in the sort of fleet of vehicles and the fleet of vehicles, you know, have deliveries, you know, maybe at some point, could they combine those two efforts?
If only Google and Amazon could work together, then self-driving cars could deliver Amazon drones, which could fly from the car to your doorstep, dropping packages on your dog. Imagine. There
you go. Last mile. The Google car takes you to the curb, and the drone delivers it straight to the door. I dig it.
It would be a wonderful world, and nobody would have a job because who's going to, you know, it's all automated. Well, an Austin, Texas startup called Tracking Point is using Google Glass to let you shoot a rifle without looking down the scope. It's actually great for shooting down Amazon drones. That means you can shoot around corners, sideways, backwards, you name it. The company's best known for its Linux-based smart rifles, which let you do neat tricks like not letting you pull the trigger unless you're guaranteed to hit the target. They also have wireless scopes that can send what you would normally see through the scope to a remote phone or tablet, and now, of course, they use that same technology to send the same type of video to Google Glass. This is probably something that the U.S. military might be very interested in because, of course, it's very dangerous to have your head exposed when you're shooting at the enemy in a battlefield. But this is really, to me, Jason Hiner, this is fascinating technology. The idea that you can, you know, sort of, you know, once you have what you see through the scope of a rifle into video, the possibilities are endless. You can shoot things via the internet. You can you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's
I know all kinds of scary possibilities, right? Amazing technology, and one of those things you wonder, why hasn't somebody thought of this before? Which is usually what a lot of the sort of most interesting and significant technologies do. Obviously, disturbing implications makes war easier and sort of more, in a sense, dehumanized. I mean, much of it is already. But yeah, you know, when we have the digital revolution, you know, it enables all kinds of things. And this is, I think, another example of some of the things it enables. Obviously, like you said, there could be good implications. It can protect soldiers and police officers and people who are, you know, out there protecting other people from being exposed to risk. So that's a good thing. And so that's sort of the most positive thing that I can think out of it.
All right. Well, it is an interesting story, and of course, the company that makes that product hinted at it back in, I think, August. I blogged about it back then. They simply had a picture of somebody wearing Google Glass, and the gun enthusiast community exploded in speculation about what they might be planning. Many of them predicting exactly this, and now they've come out with a demo video showing exactly what people thought they might do. Pretty interesting. Well, are the Android Wear watches we've all been waiting for going to be ridiculously large? A recent post on the Android developer blog shows 2 Google design and developer advocates wearing 2 Android Wear watches, the LG G Watch and the Moto 360. The watches look just like the preview renderings we've seen, but on these guys' wrists, they look enormous. Jason Howell, what do you think? Is this the? Are those too big?
We talked about this a little bit last night on All About Android. We went into the story from the angle of, oh, cool, more kind of UI and design around Android Wear, and then we got stuck on this picture and we were like, wait a minute. Look at the Moto 360. Every picture that we've seen of the Moto 360 so far has been on, obviously, a wrist that's larger than the phone, and now we're seeing a wrist that's at least the same, or sorry, not the phone, the smartwatch, at least the same size as the smartwatch. It looks a lot bigger suddenly, and I'm a little scared.
Yeah.
It's not quite what I thought it was going to be size-wise, and I think everybody was expecting that it was going to be small. This just kind of goes to show how they market these things, right? And Apple did this as well with the iPhone. I remember they had a really large hand to make the phone, kind of seem a little bit smaller when I can't remember exactly. It was like a couple of years ago. So this is not something new. But I think I expected a little bit smaller out of the Moto 360. And now suddenly seeing it in this regard, I'm a little scared.
Well, we were expecting the Moto 360 to save us from what's been plaguing smartwatches for years, which is that they're way too big and clunky. And we thought finally a smartwatch that looks just like a conventional watch, elegant. But this isn't elegant. I mean,
either that or he has really, really small wrists.
That's right. I mean, I personally don't mind it. I have giant freak hands, and so like I can wear a gigantic watch. But the whole problem with this market is that the number of people who can wear a huge watch, either because of the size of their wrist or because they're trying to be appropriate in business settings or whatever, has been very limited. We were hoping for a revolution that would make smartwatches safe for everyday wear, for women to wear, for people of to wear in a way that doesn't look like you have a dinner plate lashed to your wrist.
Yeah, and again, the thickness is something. That's going to be a challenge, right, for a smartwatch, because people have expectations about how long these should last throughout any given day, and smartwatches do more than just a regular dumb watch, so they're going to burn through battery faster. So they're going to have a little bit of that extra thickness, regardless of anything. We just haven't seen it from this perspective yet. And now seeing it, we're like, okay, so it's kind of like the other ones. It's just round versus square. Yep. But I suppose the proof will be in the pudding. Maybe this guy's wrist really is very small.
We can hope. Well,
that guy's 4'11".
I hope so.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Netflix is throwing its ISP partners under the bus in its error messages. Recode published a screenshot showing a slow Netflix download along with a message that says, quote, "The Verizon network is crowded right now," unquote. A Netflix spokesman tweeted that the message was just Netflix testing a way to keep members informed, but a Verizon PR guy said it was misleading and a confusing PR stunt, and that Verizon is investigating the issue. This is funny, of course, because Netflix, in fact, has a formal partnership with Verizon I believe it's for co-location, but it's not, that's not what you do with partners. You don't sort of blame them for the problem. Unless, of course, it is their problem. Maybe it is a Verizon problem. But there sure is a lot of shaming going around, Jason Hiner, around the speed of downloads, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I think that Netflix is kind of finally striking back. I've felt for a while that a lot of these ISPs have started doing packet prioritization, it's called, with their networks, where they can tell where these packets are coming from and they can deprioritize some packets, which makes it slower. And I think Netflix is the #1 target because it is something like 30 to 40% of all internet bandwidth traffic, load is based on Netflix, according to some reports.
Yep, at peak times, yes.
At peak times, exactly. And so I think that the ISPs, they see that and they don't like it. And they think that, that's going to slow down overall traffic. And so people are going to start other things, going slow on their network, and they're going to blame the ISP. And then the ISP, they feel like, it makes their network look bad because all these people are streaming Netflix. And so, but by the same token, the user experience when you do stream Netflix has started getting to the point where it'll downsample your video quality from HD, down to SD or even sort of lower forms of SD, standard def, because the bandwidth isn't very good, even if you have a really high bandwidth connection. And it's because these ISPs are deprioritizing those packets, and which essentially makes Netflix run slow, even though everything else on your network doesn't. I think anytime you travel and you can tell places in the country you go to where the ISPs in those areas are definitely picking on Netflix. I think that's just anecdotal. I'm not the only one that's seen that. Others have reported it as well. But I think this is Netflix kind of striking back and saying, like, look, if it's going to be like that, then we'll figure out who their ISP is. They can detect it the other way around, based on location and stuff, and they'll put a message up on your screen saying your network's slow. It's not us, it's your network.
I'd like to see Verizon put up their own thing saying, no, it's not us, it's them. Have this
a
big
battle happening
war
on the screen in front of you, these balloons just popping up over the top of each other. And purely anecdotal from my perspective, I have to say, since this deal has happened, I've had more issues with my Netflix on Comcast, not less. And I don't know what that is, but very regularly now, and I don't watch TV very often, but when we watch House of Cards or whatever, we put it on, once, maybe twice a week. Very regularly now, I have to get used to it stops playing, ramps up to 25%, pauses for a while, and then eventually it kicks back in. And that did not happen before the last couple of months. So, like I said, anecdotal, but there you go.
Yeah.
That's all we've got, because they're not really talking and giving us details and numbers. Well, in a sec, we're going to give you a really unsettling vision, although a hilarious one, of Google's self-driving car. But first, I want to tell you about Ring Central. Going to have a small business and you want a phone system. You don't want a PBX. You want a cloud-based phone system, and you want Ring Central. That's the one that we selected here at Twit when Leo and Lisa built the Twit brick house. It was a no-brainer to embrace Ring Central because they have so many benefits. For example, we have an auto receptionist feature that answers the phone, greets callers, and announces employees and department extensions. So many benefits. The cost benefits, the maintenance benefits are enormous. PBXs are yesterday's nightmare. There's no need to do that. You want to be in the cloud with Ring Central with your phone system. And now, Ring Central has meetings. That enables us to host face-to-face meetings in high def, share desktop documents with anyone, anytime, anywhere, on any device, which is really, really great. And meetings makes Ring Central the single best solution on the market today. Ring Central offers all-inclusive pricing under $25 a month per user. And you can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. And they have a special offer for listeners of Tech News Today. When you buy one desk phone, you can get a second phone free for up to 20 phones. So call this number designated for Twit listeners. 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. Or you can just go to ringcentral.com and use the promo code TWIT. Well, Conan O'Brien's people did a thorough edit of Google's recently posted self-driving car video. In the Conan version, children, the elderly, and even a cat are unceremoniously run down by the self-driving car, at least until it explodes into flames at the end. Jason, do you have that video?
Apparently the video's been playing in the background. It's gone through this whole playlist of Conan O'Brien videos. So keep talking, and then I'll get through this ad.
Yeah, okay. So, of course, if you've seen the video that we played on Tech News Today when it first hit, it's a very sort of infomercially kind of video. Everybody's happy and smiling and laughing and enjoying themselves with this self-driving car. But we've talked about it on this show and on multiple other shows that, where are the controls? Where is the brake? Where's the steering wheel? And how do you just use it with simply one button? Well, the Conan version is quite disturbing. Let's go ahead and listen to the audio of this.
It's really cool. It was like really kind of a space age experience.
Small child was just run over. Here comes the cat. The cat people are not going to like that. Say goodbye to this guy. It's awful. So now there's electrical difficulties and Boom.
I love it.
Explodes into a ball of fire. Thanks, Conan. You're really giving people a lot of
moving the
confidence
project
in the future
forward,
of transportation.
one cat at a time.
That's right. Well, that's the Tech News Today. Jason Hiner, I want to thank you for coming on as our guest co-anchor today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, you guys. You
Always,
guys are awesome.
Always great having you on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today, and you should subscribe. It's a great idea. twit.tv/TNT is where you can do that. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/TechNewsToday. And please follow us on Twitter. That's Tech News Today TV on Twitter. And find our community on Google Plus by searching for Tech News Today on the G Plus site. Comment on Twitter or Google Plus using the hashtag Tech News Today, and we'll find that message. You can also send us an email at tnt@twit.tv or leave us a voicemail by calling 260-TNT Show. Don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.